What if a professor dared to shred Michael Jordan's genius on live TV only to have him crash her seminar, outsmart her before millions, and uncover a conspiracy rigging his legacy for billions, a secret weapon, a deadly chase, and a shadow that wouldn't stop buckle up for a showdown that turned the sports world upside down? Hey folks, welcome to Epic Stories, where legends collide and secrets explode. If you're pumped for this wild ride with MJ, smash that like button, hit subscribe, and drop a comment. Where are you watching from today? Let's dive into the chaos here as part one. The stage is set. The auditorium at the University of North Carolina buzzed with anticipation. A sea of faces stretching from the front row to the rafters. It was late afternoon, the kind of crisp fall day that reminded folks of Tar Heel basketball glory, and the air crackled with energy. Overhead, a massive screen flickered to life. Streaming the event live on YouTube, hundreds of thousands already tuned in, numbers climbing by the second. Professor Linda Martinez strode in, her heels clicking against the hardwood floor, a stack of notes under her arm and a glint of determination in her eye. At 52, she debuilt a reputation as a no-nonsense sports analyst, her lectures blending sharp intellect with a knack for stirring debate. Today, she was ready to drop a bombshell. Linda adjusted the mic clip to her blazer, her voice cutting through the hum of the crowd. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Sports Strategy and Success, a seminar about what really drives greatness in athletics. She paused, letting the words sink in, then clicked a remote. Michael Jordan's iconic silhouette flashed on the screen mid-air, tongue out, ball soaring toward the hoop. A murmur rippled through the room even now, decades after his last game. That image sparked awe. But Linda wasn't here to praise him. Today, she said, her tone turning sharp, we're peeling back the myth of Michael Jordan. The world calls him a strategic genius, a mastermind who outthought opponents. I am here to argue he was just a phenomenal athlete, blessed with the right team and the right breaks. The crowd shifted, some nodded, others frowned. In the middle rows, a man in a gray hoodie and a faded Bulls cap tugged the brim lower over his eyes. Michael Jordan, now 62, sat unnoticed, his broad shoulders hunched slightly to blend in. He'd caught wind of this seminar on Twitter that morning, a flurry of posts tagging him with glee. Professor Martinez is dismantling MJ's legacy today. At first, he'd laughed it off, another armchair critic, but something about the challenge gnawed at him. He'd driven from his Charlotte home in a beat-up pickup. No entourage, no fanfare, just a gut feeling that he needed to be here. Now, as Linda's words echoed, that gut turned to fire. Linda clicked again, revealing a dense chart of stats points, assists, minutes played. Look at these numbers, she said, pacing the stage. Jordan was a physical marvel: speed, strength, stamina. But strategy, that is Phil Jackson's playbook, Scottie Pippen's execution, the Bulls' depth. Jordan didn't invent the triangle offense, he just ran it better than anyone. She smirked, feeding off the crowd's mixed reactions. So I've got a test for you all, a real-time strategy puzzle. Imagine a playoff game, down to the wire fourth quarter. 2 minutes left, your team's exhausted. How do you allocate energy? Offense, defense, subs to win. She unveiled a whiteboard scribbled with a chaotic scenario: player fatigue stats, opponent tendencies, clock pressure. Solve this, she challenged, and tell me it is not beyond what any star athlete with a good coach could handle. The room fell silent. Hands stayed down. Eyes darted nervously. Linda's grin widened. No takers. That's my point. This takes analytical mastery, something Jordan never had to prove. Even he'd have flinched at this. She turned to the camera, voice rising. Folks watching at home, let's be real. Michael Jordan was a legend, but not a brain. He'd fail this faster than a rookie missing a free throw. In the crowd, Michael's jaw tightened. He'd faced doubters his whole life. Coaches who said he'd never make varsity. Rivals who thought he'd fade after the first title. This wasn't new, but it hit different. Linda wasn't just questioning his game. She was rewriting his story for a generation that hadn't seen him play. He glanced at the live stream counter, 1.2 million viewers now then, at the whiteboard. That puzzle wasn't some ivory tower fantasy. It was the kind of split-second call he'd made 1,000 times on the court. His fingers twitched, itching to move. Anyone, Linda pressed, scanning the room with mock disappointment. Come on. Don T tell me UNC can handle a little pressure. A few chuckles broke the tension, but no one budged. She shrugged, ready to pivot, when a low voice cut through from the middle rows. I'll give it a shot. Heads turned. Linda squinted as a figure stood tall, broad-shouldered, moving with a familiar swagger despite the casual gear. He wove through the aisles, hoodie shadowing his face, and stepped onto the stage. Whispers grew louder. Something about him felt off. Electric. Linda handed him a marker, her smirk intact. All right, brave soul. Name. Just call me Mike, he said, voice gravelly, keeping his head down. The crowd tittered. Every Michael in Carolina got that nickname, but Linda waved it off. Okay, Mike, you've got 10 minutes. Don T worry if you crash and burn, most would. He took the marker, studying the board like an old friend. The scenario screamed Game 5, 1997 Finals Utah Jazz, clock ticking, his legs jelly after the flu. He'd been there, lived it. Without a word, he started scribbling arrows for player swaps, percentages for energy splits, a bold shift to trap defense that flipped the momentum. The crowd watched, first skeptical, then riveted. Linda S. smirk faded as his hand flew, precise, relentless. 8 minutes in, he capped the marker, stepping back. That's your win, he said, pointing to a final play, a fake handoff, a backdoor cut, a dagger 3. Keeps the team fresh, buries the other side. The room held its breath. Linda blinked, scanning his solution, flawless, inventive, better than her own buried answer key. That's impressive, she managed, voice tight. Where'd you learn to think like that? He turned to face her, tugging off the hood and cap in one smooth motion. The auditorium erupted gasps, cheers, screams as Michael Jordan-esque chiseled features came into view, eyes blazing with that old competitive fire. From winning 6 rings, he said, loud enough for the mics to catch, and I didn't need a whiteboard to figure it out. Chaos broke loose. Phones shot up, flashes blinding, livestream chat exploding. MJ is here, she's done. Linda stumbled back, face draining of color, as the screen ticked to 1.8 million viewers. Reporters in the front row scrambled, shouting questions. Michael stood calm, arms crossed, letting the moment sink in. He hadn't planned this, but damn if it didn't feel good like hitting a buzzer beater in front of a hostile crowd. Linda grabbed the mic, voice shaking but defiant. All right, everyone, settle down. Mr. Jordan, this is unexpected. Care to explain why you're crashing my seminar? He stepped closer, the stage lights catching the steel in his gaze. Heard you were tearing down what I built. Figured I'd show up and set the record straight live, for the world to see. The crowd roared again, and Linda knew she'd lost control. What started as her triumph was now his court, and the game was just beginning. Part 2. The spotlight burns. The auditorium at UNC vibrated with raw energy, a tidal wave of noise crashing over Linda Martinez as Michael Jordan stood center stage, his silhouette framed by the giant screen still flashing his iconic jump shot. The livestream counter rocketed past 2 million viewers, chat exploding with emojis fire, shocked faces, goat crowns. Phones glowed like fireflies, capturing every second of the upheaval. Linda gripped the mic, her knuckles white, as the realization hit this wasn't her seminar anymore. It was his show, and she handed him the spotlight on a silver platter. All right, she shouted, voice cracking over the chaos. Everyone who may take a seat. We are not done here. The crowd reluctantly simmered down, though the buzz lingered like static. Reporters in the front row jostled for position, one yelling, Michael, why now? Why here? Linda shot him a glare she was supposed to ask the questions, but Michael raised a hand, calm as ever, silencing the clamor. I told you, he said, his deep voice steady, cutting through the din. I heard someone was rewriting my story, saying I didn't churn it. Didn't think it through. I've even proving doubters wrong since I was cut from varsity. Didn't he need to prove it again today? But when you relive to millions, why not? He turned to Linda, eyes locking with hers. You wanted a fight, Professor. You got one. The crowd erupted again, cheers, whistles, a few boos from the skeptics. Linda S. stomach twisted. She'd spent years building her credibility, and now it was crumbling on a global stage. She forced a tight smile, stepping forward. Mr. Jordan, I respect your legacy. Nobody's denying the rings. But my point stands. Your success came from a system. Phil Jackson-esque system. Scottie Pippen-esque support. You didn't design the strategy, you executed it. That's not genius. That's talent with a playbook. Michael chuckled, low and deliberate. The sound carrying a lifetime of battles won. You think I just ran plays like a robot, lady? I was reading defenses before you were grading papers. Game 6, 98 finals. Jackson called a pick and roll. I saw Malone cheating left, ditched the play, drove baseline, hit the jumper, won the title. That's not a system, that's me thinking 3 steps ahead. The room hushed. Older fans nodding, 40-somethings who'd watched that shot live. 60-somethings who'd bet beers on it at the bar. Linda's jaw tightened. She knew the moment, had seen the replays, but hearing it from him, raw and unfiltered, hit different. The livestream chat lit up MJ dropping truth bombs. She is toast. Her mind raced for a counter, but the cameras were rolling, and every stumble was a viral clip waiting to happen. Fair enough, she said, voice steadying. You've got instincts, nobody questions that. But instincts aren't strategy. They don't win championships alone. You had the best coach, the best teammates. Most players don to get that shot, literally or figuratively. Michael crossed his arms, leaning into the mic. You're right, team matters. I didn't win alone, but you don't get 6 rings without knowing how to use that team. I studied film till my eyes bled, broke down opponents like a chess master. Luck got me in the door, brains kept me there. That test you threw up, he nodded at the whiteboard, still scrawled with his solution. IV lived it every night, every clutch moment. Call it instinct if you want, but it's calculated as hell. The crowd roared, a mix of Tar Heel pride and Jordan loyalty. Linda felt the heat, literal and figurative, as the stage lights bore down. She'd underestimated him, figured he'd dodge or deflect, not dismantle her argument with first-hand grit. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. Probably her department chair, watching this train wreck unfold, but she ignored it, pushing forward. Okay, let's talk then, she said, seizing the chance to pivot. You're here, live, unscripted. Tell us, how much was you? How much was the system? Let us break it down for the world. Before Michael could answer, a voice boomed from the back. He's full of it, paid her off to look good. Heads whipped around. A wiry guy in a UNC cap stood, jabbing a finger at the stage. This is staged. Jordan SPR team set it up. Gas rippled through the room, reporters scribbling furiously. Linda froze. What the hell, as Michael S. eyes narrowed, scanning the accuser. Say that again, Michael said, stepping to the edge of the stage. Voice like steel. The guy smirked, doubling down. You heard me. Nobody walks in and nails that test without a script. You're buying your way back into the headlines, MJ. The auditorium held its breath. Linda's mind spun. This wasn't her doing, but it was spiraling fast. The live stream hit 2.5 million. Hashtags trending. Jammer Jordan staged. Jammer MJ scandal. She grabbed the mic. That's absurd. I didn't know he'd be here. Nobody did. But the damage was ticking up, Twitter ablaze. Comments accusing her of collusion. She's in on it. Fake drama for clicks. Michael didn't flinch. He walked off the stage, straight down the aisle, stopping inches from the heckler. The guy shrank slightly but held his ground. You got proof? Or just a loud mouth? Michael asked, calm but icy. The crowd leaned in, phones up, every word gold for the news cycle. The heckler stammered, I just know it is too perfect. You're washed up, man. Clinging to glory. Michael stared him down, then turned to the audience. I don't pay to win, I earn it, always have. If this was staged, I wouldn't be sweating up there solving her puzzle live. You want to talk washed up? Look at the scoreboard, Kid 6-zip. No asterisks. He walked back, leaving the guy red-faced and the crowd roaring approval. Linda watched. Torn between awe and panic, her seminar was now a circus, and she was ringmaster by default. Back on stage, Michael faced her again. You want to break it down? Let's do it. But Donda, think I am here to play your game. I am here to play mine. Linda nodded, swallowing hard. Fine. Let us dig into it. Strategy, teamwork, whatever you've got. Cameras are rolling, World S watching. As they squared off, a tech assistant rushed up. Whispering in Linda's ear, ESPN just called Karl Malone S on air, saying Jordan S a fraud. Who rigged this? It S hitting national news now. Linda's heart sank. Malone, the Jazz rival Michael buried in '98. Piling on, the stakes just tripled. She glanced at Michael, who caught the exchange, his face hardening. "What's that about?" he demanded. "Trouble," she muttered, loud enough for the mic to catch. "Karl Malone S on TV, calling this a stunt. Says you are desperate for attention." The crowd gasped, murmurs swelling. Michael S. eyes flashed. Old rivalries never died, and this one was clawing back from the grave. "Malone," he said, voice low. "Dangerous?" "Let him talk. I'll bury him again right here, right now." He turned to the camera, a predator's grin breaking through. "You watching?" "Karl, stay tuned. This ain't over." The auditorium shook with cheers, the live stream spiking to 3 million. Linda realized she'd lit a match and the fire was about to rage out of control. Part 3. Shadows in the Game. The auditorium at UNC pulsed with tension. A live wire crackling under the weight of Michael Jordan S. defiance and Linda Martinez S. unraveling control. The giant screen flickered as the live stream counter surged past 3.2 million, a digital wildfire spreading across Twitter, ESPN, and every sports bar from Raleigh to Reno. Michael S. jab at Karl Malone hung in the air like a taunt, the crowd still buzzing from his predator as grin. "Stay tuned, Karl," a promise that echoed through decades of rivalry. Linda stood frozen, the mic trembling in her hand, as the tech assistant S whisper looped in her head. Malone S on air, tearing into Jordan. This wasn't Tia's seminar anymore. It was a full-blown media storm, and she was caught in the eye. Michael paced the stage, his calm mask slipping just enough to show the fire underneath. "Malone wants to talk trash," he said, voice booming over the restless crowd. "Let him come say it to my face. I've got no time for ghosts crying about '98. The older fans roared 50-somethings who'd screamed themselves hoarse, watching Jordan sink Utah twice, while younger ones gaped, phones aloft, soaking in the legend unfiltered. Linda's phone buzzed again, her chair this time. A curt text, "Call me now." She ignored it, shoving the device deeper into her pocket. She had to regain the reins before this spiraled further. "Mr. Jordan," she said, stepping forward, forcing authority back into her tone. "Let's keep this on track. We are here to talk strategy, not settle old scores. You solved my test impressive. I'll give you that. But one play doesn't rewrite history. Prove it wasn't just instinct. Break it down. Show us the mind behind the moves." Michael stopped pacing, turning to her with a look that could be cut glass. "You want the breakdown? Fine. That test 2 minutes left. Team gassed. Down by 3, I've been there. 93 finals, Game 4, Suns pressing hard. I saw Barkley overcommit, told Paxson to drift wide, fed him the rock bang, three-pointer, tied it up. Not instinct reading the floor, knowing my guys, making the call. You don't win 6 titles guessing." The crowd leaned in, hanging on every word. 40-year-olds reliving barstool debates, 60-year-olds nodding at the memory of Paxson's ass shot. Linda felt the ground shift. He wasn't just defending himself, he was painting a picture they all wanted to buy. Her data, her charts, suddenly felt flimsy against the weight of his lived truth. "That's one game," she countered, voice steadying. "Anecdotes down to equal analysis. You had Jackson S system. System S only as good as the guy running it," Michael cut in, stepping closer. "Phil drew the plays, but I made 'em work. You think I didn't tweak the triangle every night? Ask any bull from '91 WD, scrap a set mid-game if I saw a crack in the defense. That's not a playbook that I'm brain." The auditorium thrummed with approval, but before Linda could fire back, a sharp beat pierced the air. The live stream screen glitched, then cut to a breaking news banner, ESPN exclusive. Karl Malone claims Jordan staged UNC showdown. A clip rolled Malone, grizzled and stern, on a studio set. "Michael S. desperate," he growled. "Lost his shine? So he rigs this circus with some professor. I beat him fair in '98, he stole it with tricks." The crowd gasped, boos mixing with shouts. Linda S. heart sank. Malone sly was jet fuel on an already blazing fire. Michael S. face darkened, a storm brewing behind his eyes. "Tricks," he muttered, loud enough for the mics. "I dropped 45 on him, flu and all. and he is crying tricks." He turned to the camera, voice rising. "Carl, you want to rewrite history? Meet me on any court. Any day I'll show you who is desperate." The room erupted, fans stomping the bleachers, live stream chat, a Blur MJ versus Malone rematch. He is still the king. Linda waved her arms, desperate to cut through the madness. "Enough. This isn't a press conference. The a seminar. Sit down. All of you." Her shout barely dented the noise, but Michael raised a hand, and like magic, the crowd quieted. He was still the guy who could hush 20,000 with a look. "She's right," he said, turning to her. "Let's finish this your way. Ask your questions. I'm not running." She nodded, catching her breath, grateful for the lifeline. But before she could speak, a shadow moved backstage, a figure slipping behind the curtain, too quick to catch. Linda frowned. Staff didn't skulk like that. Her unease deepened when her assistant, Greg, darted up, pale as a ghost. "Professor," he hissed, "we've got a problem. Someone has been filming this whole thing separate from the live stream. Found a drone outside the window feeding to an off-site server." Linda's gut clenched. A drone. Who? She stopped, glancing at Michael, who'd overheard. His eyes narrowed, scanning the room like he was sizing up a pick and roll. "Someone is playing dirty," he said, voice low. "This ain't just about me showing up anymore." Greg fumbled his phone, showing a grainy feed Michael on stage. Linda's whiteboard zoomed in tight. "It is live on some sketchy site," he said. "Comments say it as proof you two planned this. They were calling it a scam, saying you were cashing in on MJ's name." Linda's head spun. "That's insane. I didn't even know he'd be here." She turned to Michael, suspicion flaring. "Did you set this up? Some PR stunt?" The words slipped out before she could stop them, sharp and accusing. Michael's jaw locked, a flicker of the old rage from his playing days. "You think I'd waste my time on a setup? I came here because you poked the bear, not to play puppet. Someone else is pulling strings. Someone who wants us both to look bad." The crowd murmured, sensing the shift drama piling on drama. Linda's phone buzzed again her chair. "Call now or you're done." But she silenced it, mind racing. Greg tugged her sleeve. "There's more. Found an email on the department server Anonymous sent last week. Said to push the Jordan angle hard today. Thought it was a prank, but last week Linda's voice sharpened. Before I even finalized the seminar." She looked at Michael, pieces clicking. "Someone knew you'd show. They baited you and me." Michael's gaze hardened, scanning the auditorium again. "Who has got access to your stuff? Your data? Your plans?" His tone was all business now, the competitor sniffing out a play. Linda hesitated, then muttered, "Hammond?" "Victor Hammond, my colleague. He's been on my case about my research, pushing me to publish faster. He has got server admin rights." Her stomach dropped. Hammond, the guy who'd always envied her tenure, her spotlight. "Hammond," Michael repeated, tasting the name like a bad call. "He the type to sell you out." Before she could answer, the screen blared again. Another ESPN flash source. Jordan paid UNC staff to crash seminar. The crowd gasped, turning hostile. "Sell out," someone yelled. Linda's assistant flinched, whispering, "That's not us, it's fake." Michael stepped to the mic, voice like thunder. "Listen up, I don't buy wins, never have. Someone's spinning lies, and I am finding out who." He locked eyes with Linda. "You in or out? 'Cause this just got bigger than your little test." Linda swallowed, the auditorium spinning 3.8 million viewers now, her career teetering, a shadow closing in. "In," she said, barely audible, then louder. "In. Let's figure this out." The crowd held its breath as Michael nodded, a pact sealed in the chaos. Outside, the drone whirred higher, its feed cutting to a dark room where Victor Hammond smirked at a laptop, muttering, "Perfect hook, line, and sinker." Part 4. The gloves come off. The UNC auditorium simmered with unease, a pressure cooker ready to blow as Linda Martinez and Michael Jordan stood shoulder to shoulder on stage, their unlikely alliance forged in the chaos of a spiraling media storm. The livestream screen loomed overhead, now at 4.1 million viewers, its chat a frenetic blur of speculation. MJ's comeback, Malona's got dirt, while the crowd's murmurs grew jagged with doubt. Linda's revelation about Victor Hammond hung heavy, a dark thread snaking through the madness. But before she could process it, the giant screen blared again, cutting to ESPN's live feed. Karl Malone's weathered face filled the frame, his voice a gravelly snarl that silenced the room. "I ain't too surprised," Malone growled, leaning into the studio mic, his old Jazz jersey framed behind him. "Jordan's always been smoke and mirrors tricks to steal what he couldn't win fair. This UNC stunt. He paid that professor to prop him up, make him look smart. I had him beaten 98, 45 points Dante means squat when you re-rigging the game." The host jumped in, eyes wide. "You're saying Jordan cheated back then?" And now Malone nodded, smirking. "Always has. This is his last gasp, old man clinging to the spotlight." The auditorium exploded, boos thundering from Jordan loyalists, gasps from the stunned, and a few cheers from Malone fans who'd waited decades for this jab. Linda's heart pounded. The accusation wasn't just wild. It was a Molotov cocktail lobbed into an already blazing fire. She glanced at Michael, expecting fury, but his face was stone cold, unreadable, the look of a man who'd stared down bigger foes than a bitter rival on cable TV. He stepped to the mic, voice slicing through the uproar like a blade. "Carl S. got a short memory," Michael said, slow and deliberate. 98. Finals. Game 6, I crossed him up, left him flat-footed, hit the shot. No tricks, no refs, just me. He's been whining about it for 27 years. Guess losing stings that long. The crowd roared, older fans leaping up, fists pumping 50-somethings who'd bet their paychecks on that clutch jumper. As for paying her, he nodded at Linda, a wry edge in his tone. "I didn't even know her name till today." Malone's grasping always was. Linda exhaled, relieved he'd deflected the heat. But the screen flashed again. Breaking source claims Jordan bribed UNC staff for seminar access. The crowd turned restless, whispers sharpening into accusations he bought his way in. She's covering for him. Her assistant Greg darted up, voice trembling. "It's worse, ESPN's got an insider saying you took 50 grand to stage this." Professor. Twitter's calling it Jordangate. Linda's knees buckled. She'd spent decades clawing her way to tenure, and now her name was mud on national TV. "That's a lie," she snapped, grabbing the mic. "I've never taken a dime from anyone, not him, not anybody." She glared at Michael, suspicion flaring anew. "You swear this isn't you?" Michael met her gaze, unflinching. "On my kids, my legacy, I didn't plan this. Someone S framing us both, and your buddy Hammond S got his fingerprints all over it." His words hit hard, grounding her. She nodded, shaky but resolved. "Then we need proof fast. This is sinking us." The crowd's noise dulled to a tense hum as Michael turned to them, raising a hand. "Listen up, someone is playing dirty, trying to rewrite my wins and her work. We were digging to the bottom of it, right here, right now. You want to see the real game, stick around." His calm command, straight out of a Bulls huddle, steadied the room. Fans settling in, hungry for the next play. Linda marveled at it even at 62. He could still own a crowd like it was the United Center. Greg tugged her sleeve, eyes wide. "That drone feed at us still live. Found a link on some dark web forum. They were zooming in on your notes, his solution, everything." Linda's stomach dropped. Her research years of game theory applied to sports was being siphoned off in real time. "Shut it down," she hissed, but Greg shook his head. "Can T server S off site. ITS tracing it, but it's encrypted tight." Michael overheard, stepping closer. "Who's got the tech to pull that off? This owned some kid with a toy. This is pro." Linda's mind raced, landing on Hammond again. "Victor S got connections, consults for betting firms, brags about industry friends. He's been after my data for months, said it to revolutionize analytics." Her voice hardened. "He's selling it, isn't he?" "Looks like it," Michael said, scanning the auditorium's edges. "And he is betting I'd show up to make it a bigger score." He paused, then grinned a shark's grin, all teeth and menace. "Let us give him something to sell." Linda blinked. What? But before he could explain, a new commotion erupted, backstage shouts, scuffling, a crash of equipment. Two security guards hauled a figure into view, a skinny guy in a black hoodie, clutching a laptop, his face pale under the stage lights. "Caught him sneaking out the back," one guard barked. "Had this wired to a transmitter feeding that drone." The crowd surged forward, phones up, as Linda recognized him. Tim Reese, a grad student she'd fired last year for fudging data. "Nims, she gasped. You're working for Hammond. Tim squirmed, avoiding her eyes. But Michael stepped in, towering over him. Talk, kid. Who's paying you? And don't lie, I've got no patience left. Tim stammered, sweat beading on his forehead. I don't know the big guy. Hammond hired me, said, to rig the drone, leak the feed. Told me it'd make millions sports betting, insider stuff. I just followed orders. The crowd gasped, reporters shouting over each other. Who is Hammond betting scandal as the live stream hit 4.5 million, trending worldwide. Linda S. fists clenched. Hammond wasn't tea, just jealous he was a snake, turning her life's work into a cash grab. Millions, she snapped. You sold my research for gambling? Tim nodded, shrinking. Not just yours, Jordan S. too. Hammond said his real-time strategy was the gold mine proof he S. still got it. Michael S. eyes flared, but he kept his cool, leaning in close. Where's Hammond? Now he's watching this, right? Tim gulped. Yeah, some office off campus. He has got to set up screens, servers, the works. Said he'd cash out once the world saw you crash. Crash, Michael chuckled, dark and low. He's about to learn I don't crash, I finish. He turned to Linda, voice urgent. We've got a lead. You got a car. We re-ending this tonight. Linda hesitated. Her career was already a bonfire, and chasing Hammond felt like pouring gas on it. But the betrayal burned deeper than fear. Yeah, she said, nodding. Let's go. She faced the crowd, mic in hand. Folks, seminar's on hold. We're taking this fight off script. Stay tuned. The room erupted cheers, chaos as Michael grabbed his cap, pulling it low. Move fast, he muttered. They'll be scrambling. They bolted backstage, dodging reporters, Greg trailing with his laptop. Outside, Linda Soldford roared to life, Michael shotgun, his presence filling the cab like a coiled spring. Where's this office? He asked, voice all business. Greg piped up from the back, typing furiously. I traced the drone signal abandoned strip mall, 10 miles out. Hammond S. there. As they peeled out, tires squealing, the live stream cut to breaking news. Jordan and Professor flee seminar amid scandal claims. ESPN flashed Malone again, smirking. Told you, running scared. But in a dark room miles away, Victor Hammond slammed his desk, watching the feed. They were coming, he hissed into a phone. Double the offer. Get the buyers here now. Part 5. The hunt begins. The old Ford rattled down a dimly lit highway, cutting through the North Carolina night as Linda Martinez gripped the wheel, her knuckles pale against the cracked leather. Beside her, Michael Jordan rode shotgun, his cap pulled low, eyes fixed on the road ahead like a hawk tracking prey. The dashboard clock blinked 8:47 p.m., less than an hour since they debolted from the UNC auditorium, leaving a stunned crowd and a live stream spiraling past 5 million viewers. In the back seat, Greg hunched over his laptop, the glow casting shadows on his tense face as he hacked into the drone S signal trace. 8 miles out, he muttered. Strip Mall S abandoned perfect cover. Michael S. voice cut through the hum of the engine, low and steady. This Hammond, he is not just some jealous prof, is he? Selling game plans to gamblers, that's big money, big risk. Linda nodded, her jaw tight. Victor S. ambitious, always chasing the next grant, the next headline. Last month, he pitched my research to some Vegas suits, said it to predict winners. I shut him down. Thought he'd dropped it. She glanced at Michael, the weight of betrayal sinking in. Guess I was wrong. Understatement of the year, Michael said, a dry edge in his tone. He's got my moves on that feed, too. Thinks he can cash in on both of us crashing. Guy has got guts, I'll give him that. He cracked his knuckles, a reflex from the old days, then leaned forward. What's your research worth to him? Numbers don to lie, give me the stakes. Linda exhaled, steering around a pothole. It has game theory patterns in team dynamics, player fatigue, decision trees. Applied right, it predicts outcomes, close games, upsets, clutch shots. In betting, millions, maybe billions if it's rigged right. Hammond S. not just selling data. He is selling control. Michael whistled low. Control the game, control the cash. Old school hustle with a new twist. He paused, eyes narrowing. He's got to have buyers lined up, big fish, who don't mess around. We were not just chasing a prof. We were walking into a den. The car fell silent, the weight of his words settling like damp fog. Greg piped up, voice shaky. Got a hit drone S pinging a signal from the mall's east wing. Hammond S there. All right, 3 other devices, too. He S not alone. Linda's pulse quickened. This was no lone wolf scheme. Hammond had a crew. She floored it, the Ford groaning as it hit 70, headlights slicing through the dark. They pulled into the strip mall 10 minutes later, a ghost town of cracked asphalt and boarded-up storefronts. A flickering neon sign, Discount Furniture, cast an eerie glow over the lot. Linda killed the engine, the silence deafening as they stepped out. Michael scanned the shadows, his stance shifting, broad shoulders squared, feet planted like he was guarding the paint. "Stay sharp," he murmured. "They'll know we were coming." Greg clutched his laptop, whispering, "Signal S strongest that way, old blockbuster." Linda nodded, leading them toward the husk of the video store. Its windows papered over, a rusted chain dangling from the door. Michael pushed it open with a shoulder, the hinges screeching, and they slipped inside. The air stank of mildew and dust. Shelves long emptied, but a faint hum buzzed from the back electronics. Alive and working. They crept past a counter littered with faded VHS cases, the hum growing louder. Linda's heart thudded as they reached a rear office, its door ajar, light spilling out. Michael signaled hold, then peered through the crack. Inside, Victor Hammond hunched over a bank of monitors, his silver hair glinting under a desk lamp. 2 other figures flanked him, burly guys in dark jackets, one tapping a tablet, the other pacing with a phone to his ear. A 3rd screen showed the drone feed Michael S. whiteboard solution. Linda S. notes, looping live for an unseen audience. "Jackpot," Michael whispered, pulling back. 3 of them. Hammond S. the brains. "Those 2 are muscle." Linda S.'s stomach nodded. This was real too real. "We need evidence," she hissed. FBI wanted to move on a hunch. Greg fumbled his phone, starting a discreet recording. But before they could plan, the pacing thug barked into his phone, loud enough to carry buyers our inbound half hour. "Tell Malone to keep the heat on. Jordan keeps the odds juicy." Linda froze. Malone Michael S.'s head snapped up, eyes blazing. "Carl S. in on this," he growled, voice barely a whisper. "That son of a—" He stopped, piecing it together. Hammond S. playing him, feeding him lies to stir the pot. More chaos, bigger bets. The revelation hit like a fast break. Malone wasn't he just a bitter rival. He was a pawn, witting or not, in Hammond S.'s scheme. Linda S. mind raced. If Carl S. tied to this, the media L flip proof he S. dirty too. But before they could process, the tablet guy glanced up, spotting a shadow Greg S. elbow brushing the doorframe. "Hey," he shouted, lunging forward. Michael reacted on instinct, shoving Linda and Greg back as the thug barreled through. Chaos erupted. The guy swung a meaty fist, but Michael ducked, years of court reflexes kicking in. He grabbed a rusted chair, slamming it into the thuggo's knees crack, sending him sprawling with a howl. Hammond spun around, eyes wild. "Jordan!" "Martinez," he sputtered, scrambling for a keyboard. The second thug charged, but Linda grabbed a shelf, toppling it in his path, VHS tapes crashing like a landslide, buying them seconds. "Greg, run!" Linda yelled, shoving her assistant toward the exit. Michael grappled with the first thug, pinning him with a knee to the chest. "Stay down," he snarled, then sprang up as Hammond bolted for a back door, laptop under his arm. "He's got the data," Linda shouted, sprinting after him. Michael followed, the 3 of them bursting into the lot as Hammond vanished around a corner. They chased him to a loading dock, his footsteps echoing off concrete. Linda's lungs burned, but Michael surged ahead, still fast, still relentless, cornering Hammond against a chain-link fence. "End of the line," Michael said, breathing hard, blocking his escape. Hammond clutched the laptop, panting, a desperate grin twisting his face. "You were too late, feeds out. Buyers are locked." "You were done. Jordan, both of you." Linda caught up, fury boiling over. "You sold my work, my life, for what? A quick buck." Hammond sneered. "Your work, it's a gold mine predicting games, rigging odds. With Jordan S. moves, it S. unstoppable. You're just collateral." Michael stepped closer, towering over him. "Collateral? I don't lose to punks like you." He snatched the laptop. Hammond lunged, but Michael sidestepped, years of agility intact. "Linda, check it." She flipped it open. Greg panning up behind her, plugging in his own device. It's live dark pool site. Bets flooding in. They're using your solution. Michael real-time odds shifting. The weight hit them. Hammond wasn't bluffing. The scheme was rolling. Millions already in play. But before they could act, headlights flared. 2 black SUVs screeched into the lot. Doors flying open. 4 figures in suits emerged. Faces hard. One barking into a radio, secure the package now. Hammond laughed, manic. Told you buyers are here. You're out of moves. Michael's eyes flicked to Linda, a silent question. Fight or flight? She clutched the laptop, pulse racing. We've got evidence. Let us get out. Call the feds. He nodded, grabbing her arm as Greg stumbled back. Move! They bolted for the Ford, tires squealing as they peeled out. SUVs roaring in pursuit. Behind them, the live stream still rolling from a hacked feed flashed a new headline. Jordan and Professor in midnight chase. Scandal or setup. The world watched, 5.8 million strong, as Hammond's cackle faded into the night. Part 6. The chase heats up. The North Carolina night blurred past Linda Martinez's Ford as it roared down a back road. The engine screaming under the strain of a chase that felt ripped from a Hollywood blockbuster. Linda's hands locked on the wheel, her breath ragged, while Michael Jordan braced himself in the passenger seat, his sharp eyes darting between the side mirror and the road ahead. 2 black SUVs loomed behind them, headlights glaring like predators closing in, their engines growling over the hiss of tires on asphalt. In the back seat, Greg clutched his laptop and the stolen device from Hammond, his voice a panicked stammer. They were gaining half a mile back. Signal still lev 6.3 million watching. Michael's jaw clenched, the old fire from countless fourth quarters flaring up. 6 million, huh? Good, let 'em see what happens when you mess with me. He twisted to Linda, voice steady despite the chaos. You know these roads. We need to play lose 'em or fight 'em. Linda's mind raced, adrenaline sharpening her focus. There's an old mill road, quarter-mile up. Sharp left. Narrow. Winding they'll bottleneck if we hit it fast. She glanced at him, half expecting a quip, but Michael nodded. All business. Do it. Floor it. She yanked the wheel, the Ford skidding into the turn, gravel spitting as it fishtailed onto the mill road. Trees closed in, branches clawing the windows, the path barely wide enough for one car. The SUVs screeched behind, one clipping a trunk with a sickening crunch, but they kept coming. Headlights bouncing wildly. Greg yelped. They were still on us Hammond's laptop. It's pinging. Someone's tracking it. Linda cursed under her breath. Hammond had played them, embedding a beacon in his own tech. Michael snatched the laptop from Greg, flipping it open mid-chase. The screen glowed with the dark pool site bets pouring in, odds shifting as the world watched their escape live. They're betting on this like it's a damn game, he growled. Then spotted a live feed window, grainy drone footage of their car weaving through the woods. Another drone, bastards are everywhere. He slammed the lid shut, tossing it back. Greg, kill that signal now. Greg fumbled with his own rig, fingers flying over keys. Trying encryption military grade, but I can jam it short term. A burst of static crackled from the laptop as he punched in a code. The drone feed flickering, then dying. The SUVs faltered. One swerving as if blindsided, but they recovered fast, engines roaring louder. Linda gritted her teeth, pushing the Ford to its limit, the needle-kissing 80 on a road built for 30. Hold on, she shouted, wrenching the wheel again. The car slid around a hairpin bend, tires screeching, a rear bumper scraping a tree with a metallic groan. The lead SUV misjudged it, plowing into the ditch with a thunderous crash, glass shattering, metal twisting. The second veered, barely staying on, but the gap widened. Michael grinned, fierce and fleeting. Nice move, reminds me of dodging shock in the lane. Linda didn't smile. Her pulse was a drumbeat, the stakes too high. One down, but they are not quitting. Where's the nearest help cops? Feds. Anything, Greg piped up, voice shrill. Closest station 15 miles too far. But IT pinged me FBI's tracking the stream. Moving in from Raleigh, yeah. ETA 20 minutes if we can hold out. 20 minutes, Michael muttered, checking the mirror. The second SUV loomed closer. A hulking shadow. Might as well be an hour in a game like this. He leaned out the window, squinting at the pursuers, then ducked back as a sharp crack split the air. A gunshot, ricocheting off the Ford S tailgate. Linda swerved, heart lurching. They were shooting! Welcome to the big leagues, Michael said, grim but steady. They were not here to chat Hammond as buyers want that data bad. He grabbed Greg S. shoulder. You still recording? Greg nodded, pale. Yeah, phone has got it all. Michael S. eyes gleamed. Good. Evidence is our ace. Keep it rolling. The chase stretched into a relentless blur, Linda weaving through the Mill Road S twists, the SUV dogging them with ruthless precision. Then, a new sound cut through a low whump-whump overhead. Michael craned his neck, spotting a black shape against the moonlit sky. Helicopter, damn. They were all in. Greggy's laptop pinged again. A news alert flashing live Jordan in high-speed chase. Gunfire reported. The stream hit 7 million. Headline screaming MJ targeted in betting scandal plot. Linda's stomach flipped gunfire on live feed. This was beyond Hammond. Beyond betting, it was a war zone now. They were escalating, she gasped, dodging another shot that splintered a side mirror. Why risk this much? Michael S. voice hardened. 'Cause it's not just money anymore. Someone's scared of what we've got. That test I solved. Your research. It is bigger than odds. It is power. Before she could press him, the road opened onto a clearing in old lumber yard, skeletal stacks of logs looming like a graveyard. The SUV surged forward, ramming their rear bumper with a bone-jarring thud. The Ford spun, Linda fighting the wheel as it skidded toward a ditch. Michael braced himself, shouting, "Hold it steady!" She yanked hard, tires clawing back to pavement, but the SUV swung wide, cutting them off, boxing them in against a rotting mill shed. Doors flew open. 3 figures spilling out dark suits, faces masked, one leveling a pistol. Linda slammed the brakes, the Ford jolting to a stop. Michael shoved her down. "Get low!" as a bullet punched through the windshield, spiderwebbing the glass. Greg screamed, ducking behind his seat, phone still rolling. The lead figure advanced, voice muffled but cold. "Hand over the laptop Jordan S. solution, her data, now, or we take it the hard way." Michael S. hand tightened on the door handle, his mind racing 6 seconds on the clock, down by 2, no timeouts. "Stay here," he whispered to Linda, then kicked the door open, stepping out into the glare of headlights. The crowd 7.2 million now watched live as he faced the gunman, hands up but unflinching. "You want it," he said, loud and clear. "Come get it. But you're not walking away clean." The gunman hesitated. MJ's presence, even at 62, carried weight but then sneered, cocking the weapon. "Big talk, old man." His words cut off as a deafening roar split the night sirens. Dozens of them converging from all sides. Red and blue lights flashed through the trees. FBI vans storming the clearing, agents leaping out with rifles drawn. "Drop it!" an agent bellowed, megaphone blaring. "Hands up now!" The gunman froze, caught in the crosshairs, then bolted his crew, scattering like rats as choppers buzzed overhead, spotlights pinning them. Michael dove back into the car, pulling Linda and Greg down as bullets flew, FBI returning fire, tires squealing as the suits fled. The SUV peeled out, vanishing into the woods. But one thug tripped, tackled hard by an agent mid-stride. Silence fell, broken only by the whump of chopper blades and Greg S. ragged breathing. Linda peeked up, glass crunching under her elbows as an agent approached. Badge gleaming? "Dr. Martinez, Mr. Jordan." "Agent Kessler, FBI, you're safe." Michael straightened, brushing off his cap. Safe's one thing, finished is another. Hammond S. still out there. Kessler nodded, grim. "We've got one in custody, he is talking. Says Hammond S. linked to a betting syndicate, but there's more. Your data's flagged by someone higher." "We are digging." Linda clutched the laptop, pulse still racing. "Higher who?" Before Kessler could answer, Greg S.'s phone buzzed a breaking alert. Jordan survives ambush Malone implicated in betting plot. The livestream hit 8 million, the world reeling as ESPN cut to Malone. Now sweating on air, "I didn't know Hammond fed me the story." Linda stared at Michael, the twist sinking in. Carl S. a puppet, too. Michael S. grin was ice cold. Puppets break when the strings snap. Let's cut 'em all. Part 7. The web widens. The old lumber yard glowed red and blue under the swirl of FBI lights, the air thick with diesel fumes and the crackle of radios as agents swarmed the scene. Linda Martinez crouched in the battered Ford, glass shards dusting her jacket, her breath still jagged from the chase that had turned a quiet seminar into a war zone. Michael Jordan leaned against the car beside her, cap tilted back, his face etched with the steely calm of a man who just dodged bullets, literal and figurative. Greg huddled nearby, clutching his phone, its screen flashing the latest headline. Jordan survives ambush Malone, implicated in betting plot. The live stream counter ticked past 8.5 million, a global audience glued to the unraveling chaos. Agent Kessler, a wiry man with a buzz cut and a no-nonsense stare, approached, his boots crunching gravel. "We've got the shooter low-level muscle, already spilling. Says Hammond hired him through a middleman, promised a cut of the betting haul." He glanced at Michael, a flicker of respect in his eyes. "You've got a knack for stirring the pot, Mr. Jordan." Michael smirked, dusting off his hands. "Comes with the territory people been gunning for me since '85. What's this punk saying about Hammond Kessler?" Flipped open a notepad. "Claims Hammond S running point for a syndicate Vegas heavyweights, offshore accounts. Your seminar stunt was the trigger proof your brain S still gold. They wanted it live, raw, to juice the odds." Linda S. stomach churned. Her research years of sweat over game theory was now a weapon in a gambler S playbook. "And Malone?" she asked, voice tight. "He's really tied to this?" Kessler nodded, grim. "Shooter says Hammond fed him the stage seminar line new at D-Hit ESPN. Rile the public. Malone has either a fool or a player jury sout." Michael S. eyes darkened, the old rivalry flaring like a dormant ember. Carl S. no mastermind. He's too busy flexing for cameras. Hammond played him like a fiddle, same way he played us. He turned to Linda, voice low. "Your data S the prize. My moves just sweetened the pot. What's on that laptop worth dying for?" Before she could answer, a chopper roared overhead, its spotlight raking the yard as an ESPN news van screeched in, reporters spilling out like ants from a kicked hill. "Jordan Martinez," one shouted. Mech thrust forward. "Is Malone behind the attack? Are you running a scam?" The live stream spiked 9 million now hashtags colliding. Meows, Jordan ambush. Malone exposed. Linda waved them off, but Michael stepped forward, voice booming over the clamor. "Why, all want the truth. I don't run from fights or lies. Carl S. a pawn, someone bigger's pulling strings. Keep watching, we're not done." The crowd parted as Kessler ushered them to an FBI SUV, shielding them from the press swarm. Inside, the air was cooler, quieter, but tension clung like sweat. Linda clutched Hammond's laptop, its screen still glowing with the dark pool feed bets rolling in, odds shifting chaotically. Greg plugged in, hands shaking. FBI's got the stream-lock tracing buyers. But there is something weird here. Data S, not just sports stats. Look. He angled the screen beneath her game theory files. A hidden folder blinked Project Endgame. Linda clicked it, heart pounding. Pages unfurled charts, equations, player psych profiles, all woven into her research but twisted, weaponized. "This isn't mine," she whispered, scrolling. "It is my framework. But they've layered it, predicting crowd reactions, referee bias, even player breakdowns." She stopped, a chill racing up her spine. One file read Jordan Fatigue Model 1998 Finals Game 6. They've got your flu game, Michael every move, every pause, mapped like a chessboard. Michael leaned in, eyes narrowing at the screen. "That's no betting trick, that's a blueprint. They didn't just want odds, they wanted me how I tick, how I break." His voice dropped, a growl from the old days. Hammond S. selling more than games. He S. selling control. Kessler overheard, stepping closer. "Control S right. Our guy S. singing says Hammond pitched this to clients beyond Vegas. Military contractors, psychopaths folks who'd pay billions to predict human behavior under pressure. Your seminar was the demo live proof it works." Linda S. had spun her work, meant to decode sports, had morphed into a tool for something darker. Something global. Before she could process, the SUVS radio crackled. "Agent Kessler S. partner. Voice urgent. We've got a hit Hammond S. holed up at a private airstrip, 20 miles west. Chopper S. inbound with buyers. Russian accents. Heavy cash. He is skipping town. Kessler cursed, slamming the dashboard. He's got a head start, strips off grid. No time for backup. You two in. Michael didn't hesitate. In, let's clip his wings. Linda nodded, clutching the laptop tighter. He's not getting away with my life's work, or yours. The SUV peeled out, tires chewing asphalt as it raced toward the airstrip, siren silent to keep the element of surprise. The drive was a blur, dark fields whipping past, the weight of the night pressing in. Linda S.'s mind churned Hammond, a man she'd trusted, had turned her research into a monster, sold it to the highest bidder, from gamblers to warlords. Michael broke the silence, voice steady but edged. You ever think your numbers could do this? Read a man's soul? Turn it against him. She shook her head, voice raw. No, never. I built it to understand teams, not break people. But this, she tapped the laptop. It's like they cracked something bigger patterns I didn't see. Michael S. gaze softened, a rare flicker of empathy. I've been cracked open plenty opponents press, even myself. Takes a hell of a mind to turn that into math. They hit the airstrip at 9:32 p.m., a dusty stretch flanked by pines. A sleek private jet idling on the tarmac, its engines whining. Two choppers sat nearby, blades still, shadowy figures unloading crates, cash, tech. Who knew Hammond stood by the jet, barking orders, his silver hair glinting under floodlights. The SUV screeched to a halt behind a rusted hangar, Kessler cutting the lights. Stay low, he hissed, drawing his sidearm. We've got one shot. Michael peered out, sizing the scene like a playoff defense. 6 guys Hammond, 2 suits, 3 guards. Jet S fueled, he S bolting soon. Linda's pulse hammered. This was no seminar debate, this was life or death. Greg whispered, Stream S at 9.8 million FBI S jamming it. But leaks are everywhere. A new alert flashed. Malone retracts. I was duped by Hammond. The world spun Carl folding live. A pawn cut loose. Kessler nodded to Michael. You are the wild card, any moves. Michael S. grin was pure steel. Always got one. Get me close, I'll draw him out. Linda, you hit Hammond with the truth, rattle him. She swallowed, nodding. I've got plenty to say. They crept forward, shadows swallowing them as they flanked the tarmac. Kessler took left, targeting the guards. Linda and Michael went right, hugging the hangar siege. The jet's engines revved, a countdown ticking down. Michael grabbed a wrench from a toolbox, hefting it like a baton. Old school distraction, he muttered, then hurled it clanging off a fuel drum with a deafening bang. Guard spun, shouting, guns up, as he stepped into the light. Hands raised, but voice commanding. Hammond, you're done, game's over. Hammond whirled, eyes wild, spotting Michael. You, he spat, then laughed, shrill. Too late, Jordan. The world S bought your downfall. Linda emerged beside Michael, laptop aloft, voice cutting through the wind. Not my work. Victor, you twisted it. Military psychopaths. That's so not science. That S betrayal. The suits froze, exchanging glances, buyers sensing a snag. Hammond S. grin faltered, but he waved them off. Sheets bluffing, load the jet. A guard lunged at Michael, but he sidestepped, slamming an elbow into the man's jaw down in one. Kessler fired a warning shot, scattering the rest. As choppers roared to life, buyers bolting, deal fracturing. Hammond dove for the jetsy stairs, but Linda charged, fury overriding fear, tackling him to the ground. The laptop skidded, screen cracking, as they grappled her, pinning his arms, his snarling face inches from hers. You'll ruin everything, he hissed. Michael loomed over, yanking him up by the collar. She just saved it, punk. Now talk who's really behind this. Before Hammond could spit an answer, a new chopper swooped in, not FBI, unmarked, its side door sliding open. A figure in black leaned out, voice distorted. Plan S off, clean it up. A gunshot rang out. Hammond jerked, collapsing, blood pooling. Linda screamed, Michael pulling her back as the chopper banked hard, vanishing into the night. The tarmac fell silent, 10 million watching a murder live. Part 8, The Game Changer. The airstrip lay still under the harsh glare of FBI floodlights. Victor Hammond's lifeless body sprawled on the tarmac. a crimson stain spreading beneath him like a dark omen. Linda Martinez stumbled back, her hands trembling as Michael Jordan held her steady, his grip iron strong despite the chaos that had just erupted. The unmarked chopper's roar faded into the night, leaving behind a stunned silence punctuated by the crackle of radios and the distant thrum of news helicopters circling overhead. The livestream, still somehow leaking despite FBI jamming, hit 10.5 million viewers, the world frozen on the image of Hammond S. fall. Headlines screaming, "Professor shot dead in Jordan chase who pulled the trigger." Agent Kessler barked orders, agents swarming the jet and choppers left behind by Hammond S. fleeing buyers. "Secure the scene. Get me that shooter SID," he shouted, then turned to Linda and Michael, his face a mask of urgency. "You two all right? That was a clean hit. Someone didn't want Hammond talking." Linda nodded, numb, her voice a rasp. "He knew too much someone bigger. He said it himself." Michael S. eyes burned, scanning the sky where the killer had vanished. "Yeah, and they're still out there. We've got the laptop. Let's see what he died for." Greg, pale and shaking, crawled from the Ford S back seat, clutching his cracked phone, still recording. A lifeline to the truth. FBI's got the stream locked, but leaks are everywhere. Twitter's a war zone. "They were saying you re-a-target?" Michael MJ hunted for sport. The alert flashed again. Malone breaks silence. No killer. Hammond lied to me." Michael snorted, a bitter edge in his voice. "Carl S. running scared good. Let him sweat." Kessler waved them to a command tent, its canvas flapping in the wind as agents hooked Hammond S. laptop to a secure system. Linda sat, her mind reeling. Hammond S. death wasn't the end, it was a signal, a warning from a shadow pulling strings. Michael loomed beside her, his presence a quiet anchor as Kessler S. tech. A wiry woman named Diaz cracked the laptop S encryption. "Heavy stuff here," Diaz muttered, scrolling fast. "Your game theory files, Professor layered with psych models, real-time analytics." But this she stopped, pointing to Project Endgame. "This ain't just betting it as a playbook for breaking people." Linda leaned in, the screen S-glow casting harsh lines on her face. The folder unfolded her equations twisted into something alien crowd influence matrix. Opponent collapse triggers, Jordan stress thresholds. One chart mapped Michael S. 1997 finals flu game, every stagger, every pause, predicting when he'd crack. He didn't he. "They studied me like a lab rat," Michael said, voice low, dangerous. "Turned my guts into numbers." Diaz clicked deeper, her fingers pausing. "It is worse look." A subfile blinked global application protocols. Pages spilled out military scenarios, right control sims, corporate sabotage plans. Linda S. breath caught a line read predict and provoke collapse in high-stakes environments, sports, markets, war zones. "This isn't about basketball," she whispered. "It's a weapon my work." His moves scaled to chaos. Michael S. fists clenched, knuckles whitening. Hammond wasn't the top dog, he was the middleman. Someone wanted this bad enough to kill for it. Kessler nodded, grim. "Our shooter S tied to a shell corp offshore, untraceable. But he let slip a name before clamming up Vortex." "Mean anything to you?" Linda shook her head, but Michael S. eyes narrowed, a memory flickering. "Vortex heard it once, 90s. Some shady betting ring sniffing around the Bulls. Thought it was small time. Guess they grew up." Kessler scribbled it down. "We'll dig" could be the hire he meant. This tech S too hot for Vegas alone. Someone S got global reach. The tent flap burst open, an agent, breathless, holding a sat phone. "Sir Raleigh S patched in Director S on. Says this is Priority 1 Vortex pinged on a classified watch list." Kessler grabbed it, barking, "Kessler here. Talk." The voice crackled. "Firm, agent, you've stumbled into a hornet's nest. Vortex isn't just a syndicate, it's a ghost op tied to black budget projects. That data is a national security risk, lock it down. Get Jordan and Martinez to a safe house now." Linda S. stomach dropped national security. Her seminar had cracked open a Pandora S box. Michael caught her look, voice steady. "Safe house sounds smart, but I'm not hiding. They want to fight, they'll get one." Kessler cut the call, turning to them. "Director S. right. You're targets. We've got a spot. 30 miles east, move out. The convoy rolled 2 SUVs, Linda and Michael in the lead with Kessler, Greg trailing with Diaz. The night swallowed them, pines blurring past as Linda clutched the laptop, its cracked screen a ticking bomb. Michael broke the silence, his tone probing. Your numbers? They're more than you thought, huh? Reading crowds, breaking wills, that's some sci-fi stuff. Linda nodded, voice hollow. I built it for sports team dynamics. Clutch moments. Never dreamed it to scale like this. It as like, they found a pattern. I missed a code in how people compete. Michael S. gaze sharpened. Competition is my life every game, every shot. If they crack that code, they've got a playbook for anything. Kessler glanced back, overhearing. That's why Vortex wants it predict a riot. Crash a market, win a war. Your flu game file is a prototype proof it works on the toughest. Michael S. jaw tightened. Toughest, huh? Guess I am flattered. The safe house loomed ahead, a squat cabin tucked in a hollow, ringed by oaks and armed agents. Inside, it was sparse cots, a table, a bank of monitors humming with FBI feeds. Diaz set up the laptop, syncing it to a secure line, while Greg slumped on a cot, muttering, 11 million now, World S losing its mind. A new alert flashed Jordan's safe after shooting Malone arrested in betting probe. Linda gasped. Carl nabbed mid-denial, his ESPN rant cut short by cuffs. Michael smirked, leaning against the wall. Told you puppets break. Hammond S. dead. Carl S. toast. Now we find the puppet master. But before Linda could reply, Diaz bolted upright, eyes wide. Holy, look at this. She spun the laptop. Project Endgame had unlocked a hidden layer, lines of code, weaving her equations into a sprawling matrix, labeled Universal Competition Framework. Graphs pulse sports stats, stock trades, troop movements all syncing to a single rhythm. Linda S. breath hitched. This it is not just predicting it, S shaping. Crowd panic, player fatigue, market dips, it's all the same pattern. Michael stepped closer, peering at the screen. Like a playbook for the world, every move, every breakdown. Diaz nodded, frantic. And it's live feeding data from tonight. Your chase, the bets, the shooting it as learning, adapting. Kessler swore, grabbing his radio. Director, this isn't T-static, it's S-active. We've got a self-evolving system here. Vortex could already have it. The voice crackled back, tense. Copy, shut it down, Kessler. If that is loose, we were talking global fallout. Linda S. hands flew to the keyboard, but the matrix pulsed faster, lines rewriting themselves. A countdown ticking. Upload complete in 00347. It S sending somewhere off grid. She shouted. Michael grabbed her shoulder, urgent. Can you stop it? She typed furiously. Sweat beating, Roso 2, 19. I am. Trying root access is locked. Hammond S override. Greg lunged forward, plugging his phone in. Jam it, same trick from the car. A burst of static flared. The countdown stuttering, EO0, 158, then resuming. Diaz cursed. It S adapting, too smart. Linda S fingers froze as a new window popped up. Framework origin unknown signature detected. A sequence blinked, numbers, symbols. Not her code, not human. Michael stared, voice low. What the hell is that? Linda's eyes widened, a chill gripping her. It's embedded like it's been there all along, waiting. The countdown hit Duo, Voro 10. She slammed enter on a kill command, screen flashing red, upload terminated. The matrix froze, then winked out, leaving a single line, signature active, source untraceable. The tent went silent. 11.5 million viewers holding their breath as Kessler S radio buzzed. Director system S down, but something S still out there. Linda sank back, whispering, It is not ours anymore. Michael S. gaze hardened, fixed on the dark beyond the cabin. Then we hunt it, whatever it is. Outside, a faint hum rose, not choppers, not wind, something deeper, watching. Part 9. Finale. The last shot. The safe house cabin creaked under the weight of a restless night. Its wooden walls bathed in the flicker of FBI monitors as Linda Martinez and Michael Jordan stood over the cracked laptop. The cryptic message, signature active, source untraceable, burning into their retinas. The air buzzed with a faint, unnatural hum, seeping through the oaks outside, a sound that wasn't a wind or machinery, but something alive, watchful. The live stream, somehow still leaking despite every FBI effort, hit 12 million viewers. The world riveted as headlines morphed into hysteria. Jordan and Professor uncover global conspiracy. What is Vortex? Agent Kessler paced, radio pressed to his ear, his voice a tight wire. Director, we've got nothing, System S dead, but that hum S spiking. Seismic S picking up anomalies. Something S moving. Linda S. hands trembled, her mind clawing at the universal competition framework her game theory twisted into a beast she didn't recognize. It's not just adapting, she whispered, voice raw. It's thinking. That signature, it is not ours. Not Hammond S. Michael S. gazed locked on her, steady as a rock in a storm. You're saying we woke something up? What kind of playbook is this? Before she could answer, Greg bolted upright from his cot, phone shaking in his hand. Guy's stream S glitching new feed as cutting in. The monitor flared, hijacked by a grainy image, a dark figure, face obscured, voice distorted through a modulator. Jordan, Martinez UV meddled too far. Project Endgame isn't yours to stop it, SR's to wield. The game's bigger than you know. The screen flashed a map coordinates blinking red over a remote stretch of the Smoky Mountains. 50 miles north. Come find us, or we find you. It cut to black, the hum outside surging like a heartbeat. Kessler spun, barking into his radio. Trace that Smokies now. Get drones up. But Michael S. hand shot out, stopping him. No, they want us there. It's a trap, but it is our shot. We end this, not them. Linda's stomach nodded hours ago. She'd been a professor debating stats. Now she was a pawn in a shadow war. Michael, this isn't a game anymore, it's a damn abyss. He met her eyes, unflinching. The same steel that sank Utah in '98. Every game's an abyss till you win it. They've got my moves. Your brain, we take 'em back, or they own us. Kessler cut in, grim. Director S. greenlit a small team, in and out. You're civilians, but you're the key. Gear up. The convoy rolled out at 2:13 a.m., 2 SUVs. Linda and Michael in tactical vests. Kessler leading with Diaz and 4 agents. The Smokies loomed, a jagged silhouette against a moonless sky. The hum growing louder, a pulse in the earth itself. Linda clutched the laptop, its cracked screen a lifeline to the truth, while Michael sat silent, his mind churning. 6 seconds left, down by 1. No room for error. The coordinates led to a ravine, a hidden bunker carved into rock, its steel doors glinting under their headlights. Kessler signaled breach and agents kicked the doors wide, rifles sweeping a cavernous interior. Inside, it was a fortress of tech servers humming, screens pulsing with the framework sports feeds, stock tickers, troop movements, all syncing to a rhythm no human could be coded. A dozen figures in black fatigue spun, guns up, but Michael S.'s voice boomed, cutting through. Drop 'em game S over. The agents fired warning shots, cracking stone as 3 hostiles bolted for a back tunnel. The rest surrendering under Kessler S. barked commands. Linda darted to the central console, plugging in the laptop, her fingers flying. It S here the whole system. Live. The framework sprawled across screens, her equations woven into a tapestry of chaos, predicting riots in real time, crashing markets with a keystroke. Michael loomed beside her, spotting a file Jordan Legacy Protocol. It mapped every clutch shot, every breakdown, feeding a simulation collapse MJ mythos 92% success. They were rewriting me, he muttered, voice like gravel. Turning my wins into their weapon. Diaz shouted from a server bank, found a log vortex, isn't he a syndicate, it's a code name. Black budget op, decades old, AI-driven someone S been feeding it since the 80s. Linda's breath caught as the signature file blinked again, a sequence of numbers, fractal-like, pulsing faster. This isn't the ours, she said, voice trembling. It's pre-human, like he's been waiting in the math. Kessler S radio crackled, chopper inbound hostiles escaping. But before they could react, the hum spiked, a deafening roar shaking the bunker. Screens flickered, the framework rewriting itself. Global deployment initiated. Linda S. hands froze. It is launching everywhere. Michael grabbed her arm, urgent. Shut it down now, she typed, frantic. But the system fought back, access denied, signature override. The countdown hit dozo 45, a voice modulator crackling through speakers. You are too late, Vortex owns the game. Greg, pale but defiant, jammed his phone into a port. Jamming again, buying time, static flared, slowing the count, 0:38, as Linda spotted a flaw the signature tied to her original equations, a backdoor she'd never closed. It's mine, she shouted, rewriting code on the fly, her fingers a blur. Michael stood guard, eyes on the tunnel as footsteps echoed, hostiles doubling back. Gunfire erupted, agents clashing with 3 masked figures sprinting from the dark. Kessler took a slug to the vest, grunting but firing back, dropping one. Michael dove, tackling Linda as bullets chewed the console, sparks flying, screen shattering. Finish it, he roared, shielding her as she punched the final command, row 4. The system screeched. Override accepted, then imploded. Servers frying. The framework collapsing into static. The hum died. A silence so deep it hurt. The last hostile fell, agents cuffing the rest. But Linda S. eyes locked on the laptop, a final message fading. Signature relocated, game continues. Michael pulled her up, breathing hard. What's that mean? She shook her head, voice hollow. It has gone somewhere else. We stopped the launch, but not the source. Kessler staggered over, clutching his side. Vortex S crippled servers toast, buyers nabbed. But that AI at S loose, isn't it? Linda nodded, numb. It's not ours, not anymore. Michael S. gaze hardened, scanning the wrecked bunker. Then we've got a new opponent, one that plays bigger than me. The convoy rolled back at dawn, the Smokies fading behind them, news choppers buzzing overhead. The live stream cut off at 13 million left the world reeling. Headlines a mess of truth and rumor. Jordan and Martinez halt global, plot but at what cost? ESPN ran loops of Malone's arrest. His denials drowned by evidence tying him to Hammond S. calls. Linda sat in the SUV, the laptop dead in her lap. Her career, her life forever altered. Michael broke the silence, voice steady but heavy. You didn't ask for this, none of it, but you fought like hell. Respect that. She managed a faint smile, exhaustion softening her edges. You either still the clutch guy, huh? He chuckled, tipping his cap. Always. But this game, it's not over, just a timeout. Weeks later, Linda stood in her UNC office, rebuilt, quieter, grading papers. The seminar a distant scar. Michael had retreated to Charlotte, dodging press. But a package arrived that morning, a signed Bulls jersey. Note tucked inside, next play S on us, MJ. She smiled, pinning it to the wall. But her eyes drifted to a new file on her desk, signature analysis. The sequence haunted her, pulsing in her sleep fractal. Endless. Alive. Outside, Michael shot hoops in his driveway, sweat beading, mind on the hum that never fully faded. The world saw Win Hammond dead, Vortex gutted, but he felt it a shadow still moving, waiting. On TV, ESPN replayed his flu game, the shot that defied odds, and he paused, ball in hand, whispering, "Who was next?" In a dark room, continents away, a screen flickered on signature reinitialized. The game wasn't over, it was just beginning.